right. So if you're just joining us, please take just a moment to fill out that QR code. We have the link in the chat for you as well. But we're going to go ahead and get started. We have several wonderful panelists with us today to talk about all things skills-based hiring. It's such a hot topic right now. It's really a focus in how our employers and hiring managers are looking at candidates and evaluating for different roles. So we have a lot to cover, so I'm going to jump right in with some introductions. My name is Hannah Landers. I'm the Assistant Director of Career Services here in Pamplin, and I'll be serving as our moderator today. And I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves. Madison, you're first on my screen.
Thanks for the warm welcome there, Hannah. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet you guys all here somewhat face to face. But again, my name is Madison Yu, and I'm a University Talent Acquisition Specialist over at Appian. That's just a fancy way of saying that I'm a campus recruiter here. I've been in the recruiting space for just about a year and a half, almost 2 years at this point. Reviewed thousands of resumes, conducted hundreds of interviews here. I'm also a Virginia Tech alum, so I'm super excited to answer any of the questions that you guys have. But that's a little bit more about me.
Perfect. Thank you, Madison. Matt, you're up next.
Yeah, thank you. Hey everyone, I'm Matt Tonelson. I'm a senior consultant here at Deltek actually, so not necessarily on the recruiting side, but we do a lot of recruiting for our kind of consulting team. I also graduated from Virginia Tech in 2017, so about 8, 9 years ago. Yeah, I look forward to kind of speaking with you guys for the next hour or so.
Perfect. Thank you. And Maggie?
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Excited to be here today. Again, my name is Maggie Carlson. I'm a campus recruiter at Protiviti. We're a global consulting firm. And similar to Madison, have reviewed a lot of resumes, and we've talked a lot about skills-based recruiting at our firm I should say this semester. So happy to talk a little bit more about it today.
Perfect. Thanks for being here. Evan?
Thanks, Hannah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Evan Spivak. Like Matt, a senior consultant at Deltek, but a part of our role, what we do on-campus recruiting, as well as we run the intern and our new hiring program. So we're interviewing and hiring young consultants and interns year over year. So we've been doing it for a few years and happy to be here today.
Perfect. And last but not least, Eric.
Hi, my name is Eric Youtz. I'm a senior director here at Deltek and director over top of consulting. I work closely with Matt and Evan with the hiring process, and I think when we go to the Virginia Tech fairs, we collect well over 200 resumes and talk to countless people. So it's great to be here. And I've been with Deltek for 7 years and in industry 30 years.
Perfect. All right. So students, we have some prepared questions. We're going to work through those, but we would love to have questions from the audience as well. So if you could stay on mute and just pop your question in the chat, we would love to give those to our panelists here today to share their thoughts. We have a lot of different perspectives on the panel, so let us know what you'd like to know more about. So just to jump right into some of our prepared questions, Madison, I'm going to start with you for this one. When you're reviewing candidates, how much weight do you place on a student's major versus the skills that they bring in? I'm curious if you can share an example where skills have mattered more than the specific degree for you all.
Yeah, that's a great question. And thanks for teeing that up here. I mean, I think that, right, your major provides a great foundation for some of the knowledge, right, and skills that you will get exposure to. I think that the skills are something that you can elaborate on your own free will, right, and be able to better paint that picture of some of the interests that you want to pursue. I think a good example of this is I'm actually the recruiter for the associate technical consultant here at Appian. And a good example of that is that for that role in particular, I find that a lot of majors do well, right? We've had econ majors do well, industrial and systems engineers do well, math majors do well. And the common question is why, right? I think that part of that includes just like general curiosity, right? Skills within SQL, problem solving abilities, enthusiasm for the position. So I truly believe that although your major can provide great foundational knowledge around concepts, I think that those additional skills could better hone in that lens.
Yeah, absolutely. Maggie, I'm curious your thoughts on this as well as someone who's reviewed many resumes and looked at candidates.
Yeah, great question. I think one of the main reasons we start with majors is I think students pick their majors based off of interest, right? And we're trying to fill these roles that kind of exist and do a lot of different things based off students' interests. So I think that's kind of why we start with majors. And I think it's really dependent on the role, right? So for example, a role in audit, we may target or work a little harder to target accounting students because there's more crossover from what they're doing in their classes. But maybe when it comes to legal risk and compliance or solutions or specialties that are a little more broad, we're just looking for anyone with a background in finance or accounting or econ. And I think the only difference there is that maybe we're looking for someone with like a more centered background in audit, where and maybe like risk and compliance, um, we're open to more students because they're doing a wider variety of things. So kind of casting a wider net.
Okay, yeah, that's really helpful. Eric, I'm curious as you're talking with students and at Business Horizons or other events, you have fairly technical roles at Deltek, but what are some of the skills that you look for across all majors and across all roles?
So the skill set, particularly this year, we really switched quite a bit to we're very AI focused here. So we are asking a lot of questions about how are you using AI, not just like using it as a Google, but what are you using for prompting? How in depth are you in this? Because the transformation here is, I think Matt and Evan can attest to this as well, is pretty enormous. It's the biggest thing that's come along since the internet, is what we were saying today. So we are really heavily asking, like, what have you been using AI for? Please specifically talk to us about AI. That's the one skill. The soft skill we always ask for is to be a hungry individual that has initiative. So we want to be able to see, no matter what your major is, that you show initiative in everything that you do. And that goes for when we're having the conversations with people, being able to have that conversation and show that initiative of actually asking the right questions is great.
Okay, yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question is how do you prefer that students demonstrate those skills to you?
And so when we're talking with individuals, especially when we were talking to 200 at a time, right? The biggest thing that I always say is they always ask, how do I stand out? And I always say, we want initiative. Here's my LinkedIn. LinkedIn with me, have a conversation with me. Anyone who does that automatically goes to the next round for us to be able to actually start talking. That's the easiest way to parse out. Because if you show initiative that you want to take that next step, we're going to see if we want to take that next step with you. If you don't even show that initiative and don't contact any of us, well, then that resume is automatically just going to be pushed to the side.
Okay, that's a great tidbit. I'm going to go to Evan for this one. So let's say you have a student reaching out to you on LinkedIn and they're asking questions. What do you like the student to talk with you about? Obviously, we don't love when students reach out, hey, can you give me a job? So what do you like them to ask when they're connecting with you?
Yeah, the best thing and I think the one that opens up the conversation is asking, when they look at our internship program, that's where we've seen a lot of interest at Virginia Tech specifically, but so we can talk to that a lot, is just what does a day in the life look like? And that conversation will usually and just naturally graduate or gravitates towards what will make this role successful. Where does a career align with this? So it's just the evolution of what does a day look like and the natural conversation of, how would I be successful or what does that fully entail through your life cycle at a job or a company.
Okay, and then Evan, thinking about the AI side as well, Eric was talking about the importance of demonstrating that specifically for Deltek. What are some things that you like students to have done with AI? I think a lot of students are using it for maybe writing emails, helping with resume. What are some of the specific uses that really perk up your ears when someone's talking about AI?
Yeah, like again, 2 years ago, AI was taboo in academia. It really was. So I think what we've seen is we have an intern. I think it's a Virginia Tech intern who's coming in who's part of like an AI governance board. So really seeing people take over and just engulf themselves in AI. We have AI clubs that we see on resumes that stick out to us. But then the question, and to Eric's point, not just, oh, I Google it, but hey, I take my notes, I will take like a transcript of my notes, I load it into AI and see what will be on the test or what are key elements. So it's almost, and we've talked about initiative and we focus on that, but it's pairing that with curiosity and asking, how can I best leverage AI to make myself successful? So I think that's really an amazing thing to see with young individuals.
Okay, just because AI is such a hot topic, I'm going to go back to Madison and then I'll come to you, Maggie. And I want to get Appian and Protiviti's perspective on AI as well and how you all view that in those initial hiring conversations.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that Virginia Tech, first of all, has done such a fabulous job in terms of integrating AI into the curriculum. Even just perusing through the website in and of itself, Virginia Tech Professional Development. Sorry about that background noise. There's a lot of workshops and different trainings that you can participate in. I mean, I think it's important for us to stay at the forefront of technology and understand how that's evolving through and through. And to Evan's point and to everyone else's point, right, staying at the forefront of there and that genuine curiosity and initiative in terms of wanting to learn more, I think really does make a student stand out. So that would be my take there.
Okay, great. And Maggie?
Yeah, I mean, echoing what everyone else said, I think having a interest in AI is so important. I think no matter what you're doing, I mean, at Protiviti, we're being encouraged to utilize AI to make us more efficient, right? So I think if students are doing that in the work they're doing on campus, I think that's huge. I think if you're an accounting student, and then you have some interest in AI, whether it's maybe a minor or maybe a club on campus, I do think it truly makes you stand out. I think we're always kind of looking for innovative students, and I think the main kind of way we're seeing innovation right now is through AI. So I think it's definitely huge if you're incorporate that into your resume or your conversations with recruiters or consultants or kind of teams more broadly.
Okay, great. Matt, I'm going to come to you for the next one. I'm curious how you would recommend students reframe their academic experiences into something that's more skills-based that can really showcase their ability to be hired onto a professional team.
Yeah. I think for us, we look at when we're looking at resumes, we're looking more at real life examples of, you know, how you work in a team, how you have leadership skills and whatnot. So instead of saying like, I took this class, say I took this class and, these are the skills that I learned from this class, or I worked on this project and this is the leadership that I, took upon myself for this project. I mean that's kind of what we ask in interviews, but if that's kind of right on the resume, I think it's easier to kind of dive deeper into that.
So you want a student to just very explicitly say, here's what I demonstrated through this experience.
Yeah, I think, and maybe that's just me, but I know that that's something that I kind of dive into in interviews where, okay, I see that you took accounting, 1500, whatever it is. What did you learn and what skills did you kind of take away from that class?
Okay, and I would assume it's similar with the use of AI, right? If you can kind of explicitly share where and how you're using that, is that kind of something you're looking for when you're reviewing resumes?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean that's something that we always ask is about AI. And something maybe a little off topic, but back on AI, it's almost the way I look at it, it's kind of like a level setting opportunity, right? I've been at Deltek learning, our ERP system for 8 years, but I've been learning AI for one or two, just like everyone else at college, right? So it's an easier way to kind of level the playing field with more senior, people that have been doing something different for 7 years.
It's interesting you say that too, because I think a lot of our students are using AI in a, I would say, basic way sometimes because we're all still learning the tools. And so there's this worry that maybe they're not using it enough to talk about it. But I think, what you guys are saying is that you want students to just be familiar with the platforms, even if that's still just starting
Mhm.
out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, Hannah, to add on to that, it goes to the point of that showing initiative to just learn about and knowing it. And it demonstrates that skill that I think that a lot of firms are not looking for and just being out there and being a go-getter.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. So, Eric, I'm going to come back to you for this one. What's one skill you believe students underestimate in themselves as a new grad or a new intern?
So I'm going back to the initiative one, even though I mean, it's the biggest one. But also for us is we look for consulting a lot of soft skills. So a lot of times when I interview somebody, all I do is have a conversation with them about any one topic on their resume to see how far they can actually lead the conversation. So with them having something, I never see anywhere on a resume that actually points out any type of soft skills at all. It's always about the technical skill, technical skills, technical skills. We need to be able to see that, yeah, I was in leadership and this is how I actually was able to lead this team. Point out those skills because those are the ones that we really look for. Because I'll be honest, I've had interviews where they're done in 5 minutes because I ask them a question and the answer is yes. I ask a follow-up question, the answer is it was awesome. I'm like, all right, this is kind of done. You're not really having a great skill set here of what we need as a consultant to be able to lead a conversation. So being able to somehow put that on a resume to show that, yeah, I am able to lead a team and be able to exude those type of soft skills. And that's hard. I understand.
Yeah,
And Eric, sorry, I wanted to follow up on that as well. I think it's really important to be a great storyteller of your own experiences, right? I feel like this wouldn't be an advice from a recruiter if I didn't mention the STAR method, right? The situation, task, action, result, and everything that you do. Everyone comes from such diverse backgrounds and experiences. And if you're able to tell that compelling story of who you are and why you're the perfect fit for this role, that's going to get me 10 out of 10 times. And so just wanted to add that little tidbit there.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, I'll give the one example of what was the best experience in your life? I went to Amsterdam. Great. Tell me about Amsterdam. It was awesome. I'm like, great. Glad to hear it. That was the entire conversation, which was a kind of a letdown. So be able to have that skill to be able to have that conversation from beginning to end.
actually, I really love that example, Eric, and I'm wondering if you could share with us what you would have wanted to hear from an answer like that.
Well, so yeah, from an answer like that, I've had the discussions with other people, and they're like, "I like traveling. Like, where's your favorite place?" And they would name a place, and then they just went into like, "Well, this is why I loved it so much. I would go here, or I go there," and then we'd start talking about, "Well, I went there because this is my favorite restaurant." And we're like, "Oh, what's your favorite food?" And they talk about that, and we just lead down the conversation. It might start with a simple question, and it will veer way off that original simple question because they're willing to engage in anything and lead the conversation any way they want. So not a one or two word answer, be descriptive and then be prompting to me as well. You're leading the conversation. I'm not leading the conversation anymore.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of roles, consulting and other, just working with clients, but also your coworkers, where that's such an important skill. And of course, a lot of it is practice. But Maggie, I'm curious, I know Protiviti has a lot of consulting roles too. Curious what you would recommend a student do now while they're in college to help build and develop that skill to speak with people, build relationships, and, have those conversations.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think to start getting comfortable in the uncomfortable, I think that's huge. I think, the only way to expand your realm of comfortability is to get outside of it. So I think any speaking opportunity you have the opportunity to participate in, um, whether that's in a class, whether that's in a club, I think that's great. And then kind of back to that initiative component, if you can go and speak to that in an interview and then speak to how you kind of sought out that opportunity, I think that's huge. I also think any sort of networking opportunities that there are at Virginia Tech, I would have jump at those. I think just being able to speak with people who come from different backgrounds and have different perspectives from you, um, gives you the opportunity to kind of see things from different perspectives and kind of down the line make you a well-rounded employee, candidate, whatever that may be. So yeah, that's what I would say.
So digging into the networking a little bit, because we offer a lot of networking opportunities here at Virginia Tech, but I do think it's intimidating for those students who are still looking to develop the skill. Do you have a tip or two for a student who's going to maybe their first networking event? How would you recommend approaching conversations like that? And Maggie, I'll ask this question just as a follow-up to you again. How would you recommend that they break into a conversation and start it at just walking into the room?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, and I think that's so valid. I mean, I definitely have those same like anxieties as well when I walk into a conversation with people I don't know. So I think it's very natural. And I think um, first kind of like reminding yourself that the other person is just a person, I think that helps. I think, right, like if it's I guess it depends on the environment. Like if it's a career fair and you knew that a certain employer was going to be there, I think like doing a little bit of research and saying, hi, my name is Maggie. I'm a finance major and I'm interested in X at Protiviti. I think that's great. Um, but maybe if it's just a more informal networking event where you don't know who you're going to be talking to, I think approaching it with like openness and enthusiasm, I think that goes a long way. So maybe just like expressing interests you have, and opening it with a little bit about yourself and your major. You can maybe start there.
Yeah, that's a great starting tip, I think. Matt, I'll come to you. What do you think
I
makes,
just had a follow-up to that.
oh yeah, please.
Be curious. So be ready to ask questions. That's a very easy way to break the ice. Instead of if you're worried and have anxiety about yourself and talking about yourself, ask questions of the individual. So for
We'll
instance, when I
also,
walked up
oh,
to Matt,
sorry.
and I was going to say, if I walked up to anyone here, I'm like, hey, how long you been with whatever company you're with? And tell me about your job there. That gets to break the ice to get you a little bit less nervous around that individual.
And to add on to that as well, for me personally, I don't expect individuals to be perfect, right? And check off every single box for me. I don't think that's going to be the main priority there. I think alluding to what everyone else has said, interest, curiosity goes so far. If you come up to me at a career fair and you're like, hey, so nice to meet you. I'm blank. My name is Madison, and I'm this year, and I'm potentially targeting this. Would love to learn a little bit more about Appian or the culture. That's a completely fine answer too. I think that most of the times we have certain expectations of our heads of it's going to go one way or the other, but it's okay to simply just ask questions and come prepared with that. That's our responsibility, right? To educate you guys and make sure that you have all the knowledge and the skills up your repertoire just to feel confident. So that's what I would say.
Perfect. Those are all such good tips. I think, also to remember that if you're walking into a room and the goal is networking, there is no other way to do it other than to just walk up and say hi and start a conversation. There's no other magic ticket. It's not weird to just start a conversation. And asking questions, like Eric said, is great. I'd love to hear, Evan and Matt, your take on this as well. What's the difference between a student who's networking and an experienced professional, and how can they show up, and really confident in that space?
Go ahead, Evan.
Yeah, the way like so I guess Hannah, the question is how to if you're a student networking with experienced professionals, how would I approach it from the student's perspective? Okay.
Yes.
The one thing to remember, and it goes back to what Maggie, Madison, Eric were saying, if you're at a networking event, everyone's there for that same reason, right? You got to put it's almost like imagine yourself that you're in their shoes. You're there for a reason. They're there, you're there for a shared reason. And to approach it with that mindset, you know, like Eric said, just ask a question, and that will generally form that conversation and help build that confidence up. Um, Especially when you're networking with professionals, right? They have stories you can ask about their career, what have they enjoyed. You can dive into all of those, and that again goes into that curiosity and will look really great with leaders and professionals.
Um, yeah, so I think with professionals, I think it's a little more important to come prepared. If you're networking with, you know, Evan and I got dinner with some of the directors at Deltek yesterday. come prepared, know who you're going to talk to if you're able to, right? If you're networking just at a college event, you might not know anyone there, so it's less important is to kind of show up prepared. Whereas if you're going to a specific event where you know specific people are going to be there, look them up on LinkedIn beforehand, right? 5 seconds of research. So at least have something to talk to them about.
Yeah, it's for the Virginia Tech Career Fairs. The really easy one is seeing the booth that'll be there, a 2-minute Google search, and you can really open up a bunch of conversations and opportunities for yourselves.
Absolutely. I mean, having good questions is how you're going to drive that conversation and make it more genuine. Like Eric was talking about, you can get talking about travel and all kinds of things, and that's how you have a really genuine connection with someone. Curious about follow-up. I would love to hear quick opinions, and I want to just pause too. And I know we're veering into networking, which, this panel is titled Skills-Based Hiring, but the importance of the skill of networking and the skill of talking to people is part of the skills-based hiring. And I think that's why we're talking about this topic so much. The soft skills, the power skills that we call them in Pamplin, being able to talk to people, also so important. So Maggie, I'll come to you for this one. What do you like a student to do to follow up to show that professionalism and communication after they've met you at an event?
Yeah. I mean, I think this goes back to what Eric was saying in the beginning with initiative. I think it's huge to show and express your interest. I also think with this current job market, right, I think there are so many applicants. So in order to make yourself stand out, I think it's so important to um, follow up, right? So especially because I'm kind of on the recruiter side, right? So I'm looking at resumes all day long and kind of always geared towards that. But I think when maybe someone from like the practice side, like maybe a consultant follows up with me and was like, hey, I connected with this person at this career fair and they're really great. I do think that makes you stand out. But back to the question I had, I think just like an easy email or LinkedIn message just saying, hey, thank you for your time. It was so great connecting with you. I'm really excited about the potential to be considered for this role. I think that's great because you're following up and you're showing the enthusiasm. I think like LinkedIn versus email, I think it's very dependent on the person. For example, myself, I think I would be quicker to see and respond to an email than a LinkedIn message, but I think that's honestly more personal. Um, but at the end of the day, I think it's important to do it and to just kind of express like gratitude and enthusiasm and also maybe inquire about next steps.
And to add on to that, if it's a follow-up from like a career fair, and maybe this is bad, but remind me what we talked about, right? Give me something so I remember who you are. Again, might sound bad, but if I talk to 300 people, right, I'm not going to remember everyone just by their first and last name.
I think that there was like a Maya Angelou quote that was something along the lines of people will forget what you said and what you did, but they'll never forget how you felt. And to Matt's point, right, I think that it's important to be specific, right, especially when with a follow-up email. I think that goes so far, right, to hear a student say that they reflected on those things and they're super excited about the potential there. I think that that goes from good to great. So I like that detail there added.
Yeah, I love that as well. When you send, because I'll get tons of messages on LinkedIn. And to Matt's point, tell me something that we talked about, because that will spark the memory to me. I mean, if you've just seen your name and saying thank you very much for talking to me, I'm like, yeah, no problem. It's great talking to you too. I won't remember who you are. Too many people. But if you're like, oh, it was great talking to you about Bucknell, because that's where I went, so I have to hype up Bucknell. Sorry that you went to Bucknell and Lewisburg's a small little stupid town. It was great talking to you about that. That will spark a memory of like, oh, I remember talking to that individual. So always pull something out that you spoke to me that is going to resonate with me besides just saying it was great talking to you.
Okay, so thinking about when you're talking to a student at an event, networking with them, how do you like them to demonstrate? So let's talk about elevator pitches, I guess is what I'm getting at. Do you want them to just give you everything in that initial elevator pitch? Do you prefer to ask some questions? What's the best way for a student to let you know that they know how to use Python or Power BI or Claude or whatever you're looking for when they're meeting you? I'm gonna go open to everyone. Evan, looks like you might have thoughts here.
Yeah, so I would say the first thing that if you're coming up to me, and I say this, don't ask what does Deltek do or what does whatever do. That's something I've heard at many career fairs, and it's a one thing that when I hear it, I'm like, oh, you don't do any research. There's no initiative before that, so don't do that. But what I do like, right, is just coming up a soft and again part of we've been talking about soft skills is this when you're going to a company, it's people want to be around you because you're working with them, right? And you have to want to be around people, and people want to be around you to have a successful career. But not to just dive right into it, but start with a general conversation. We all commute to Blacksburg. How was the drive in, right? Something to slightly break the ice to show that you care. And then it gets into, oh, so like, what are you studying? BIT or right, whatever that major is. And then we'll start getting into those technical skills. But first, I think it's important to just do a general greeting of someone because if you're just throwing statistics and stuff at me, it's overwhelming at the time.
I agree with that as well. I think that as far as like a general pitch goes, right? I think that your name would be great, right? Maybe your year, to better understand, hey, are you looking for an internship? Are you looking for a full-time role? And then ultimately following that up with like your major would be great. And then from there, the conversation can expand a little bit further as well.
Okay, that's super helpful. And I imagine that when a student starts asking questions and you start sharing what the roles look like and what you're doing, you might mention a couple skills, and that would be a really good point for the student to say, actively listen, and then, oh, I'm learning that now, or I'm taking a course on that now.
Yeah, I think it even just comes with like we talk about. Oh, I keep hearing BIT. Again, I wasn't a tech person, so I go, "Oh, what's BIT?" I get the rundown, and then I'm like, "Oh, that translates here. We do work with Claude." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, we've done Copilot, right?" And so then we can start talking about that stuff, and it's natural. If you have to force something, it's not ideal if you have to force a conversation. It's not a good introduction and a good first 2 minutes. Good elevator pitch, so to say.
All right, let's shift gears a little bit to talking about the interview stage, because obviously this is the last chance to sell your skills in the hiring process. So I'd love to know some tips for ensuring that you're really selling yourself and, using the STAR method, but how do you make sure you hit all the different skills that a company is looking for? Matt, I'll go to you for this one.
Yeah, and that's a good question. Kind of like what we mentioned earlier. A lot of our interviewing is we just want to have a conversation with you. Which, we'll ask about AI, we'll ask about a couple of your classes, and then it's just conversation. So I think and the way we start is we give like a rundown on, this is the job, this is what Deltek does, this is what CostPoint, our ERP system, does. So I think finding a place where, oh, CostPoint does this, that translates directly to, this skill that I learned or this class that I'm taking. So trying to find an in through just natural conversation, um, instead of waiting for me to ask a specific question about, oh, how good are you at Excel? Right. And maybe that's maybe I interview a little differently, but I know that we like to have more conversational type interviews than me just going down your resume asking about every single point that you have on there. So you might need to find a way to work in your skills kind of through the conversation that we're talking about.
100%. I mean, just to follow up with that, we did make an honest shift in our hiring practices for the internship and the new consultants coming in because we used to go out and ask all technical questions. And then we realized everyone's good at technical stuff. What we need to be able to do is be able to have that conversation to explain to us those technical things in a fluid conversation, as opposed to just reading off resumes saying, hey, do you know Python? Great, check. Hey, have you used Copilot? Great, check. No, How did you use it? Are you fed up with prompting? How angry did you get at the prompting yesterday when you asked it something and told you something was 100% incorrect? Have those conversations so we know that you're actually using those skills.
I would also agree with that. And I think I'm going to go back to my point of specificity, right? For example, during conversation, rather than saying you communicated with the team, walk us through everything, right? You accomplished X by doing Y, yielded this result. I think that allows for more opportunities for you to subtly integrate maybe some technical skills that you learned, maybe how you collaborated with other PE individuals as well. I think that specificity aspect and following the XYZ sort of prompting, if you will, problem, action, result, I think allows more opportunities for you to showcase your abilities, but also be very clear and concise with your communication as well.
Adding on to that a bit, I am kind of back to what Madison said. I think with that STAR method, when I ask our interviewers how their interviews went, I think something I hear a lot is that students are they kind of talk about a problem and then they forget to include the results component. And I think being able to quantify results, I think that's huge. Um, Another thing is I know at Protiviti, before the formal interview, you have a screening with someone like myself. And I kind of think that's like a great way to ask more questions about how to stand out in the interview. I love when I'm having a conversation with a student and they ask how to stand out in an interview. They ask what skills they should highlight. And then I'm able to give them kind of that insight. I also think that a lot of hard skills, I guess, can be taught. But again, like people want to hire people that they want to work with. So it's really important to remember that there's just a person on the other side of the call or the interview. And I think like collaboration and accountability and the ability to take initiative, really important to always remember those.
I
I
second
think
that.
Yeah, and another thing, right? We keep touching on this, the technicality piece, right? Everyone can be taught those things, but walk us through how you learn new things, right? Maybe some challenges that you faced and how you overcame that, right? Because I feel like those are direct correlations to how you will be within the workplace, right? So I think those softer skills, if you will, over hard technical skills, are way a little bit heavier here.
Madison, can I ask for an example of what you just shared? So walk us through how you learn and your critical thinking. I would love an example to get students thinking about how they can communicate that to recruiters.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think of like specific internships, right? Whenever you join a new company or a new role, there could be some maybe technical tool that you had never had familiarity with, but you must learn how to use it in order to be successful within it. So walk me through, did you have coffee chats with people? Did you reference YouTube videos? What was your process of learning those things to ensure that you have mastery in how your learning then led to a specific result by utilizing that tool? I hope that answers your question. I can elaborate a little bit further if necessary as well.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I think just trying to understand to what degree students should be sharing those details as far as how they're learning. I think sometimes when I'm doing mock interviews with students, they're like, I have to show up as an expert already. And I think what I'm hearing is that you guys want them to talk through the process, to talk through what they're still learning, because they're going to have to learn even more when they join you at your respective companies.
And be energetic about it. I mean,
Mhm.
one person really stood out for me because they're like, I like program management. Like, what do you like about program management? Like, oh my gosh, I set up these Excel spreadsheets that do this, and like all my classes are in it. And then I go into Copilot and I type in what I should be doing, or ChatGPT, and it puts it down. And they just go down this experience, and it shows their skill levels in these different things, and they're passionate about that. If you just start rattling off all the classes you've ever taken, I'm like, well, great, I'm happy for you. You need to be able to present that story to me and your passion around it.
All right, so I have a couple more questions prepared, but I do want to just prompt our students who are on the call to throw some questions in the chat as we get closer to the end here of our prepared questions. But these examples that Madison and Eric you just gave of students who talked through something very specific, I think is helpful. Can I have, I'll just go Matt, Maggie, Evan. Can I have other examples of times that students have showcased their skills really well or talked through how they're learning something or working through a process?
Um, yeah, so I mean, one example is I was talking to someone, and we've mentioned a million times at Deltek, we're doing a bunch of AI things. And I was telling him about something that I was doing for AI, right? A project that I was working on. And he then came and said, "Oh, I'm actually doing something similar for one of my classes. I'm doing this, and this." And it was all things that I didn't think about for my own project that actually helped me. So it's taking what we're talking about and seeing how you can relate that kind of to your skills. Um, Again, AI specifically, at least in that one instance, but yeah.
Okay, great. Maggie?
Yeah. I kind of the first example that came to my head, I think in consulting adaptability is so important, right? Because you may be working with clients in different industries that have different problems. And I was talking to a student, um, and they shared that they were in working on a class project and it was 2 weeks before the deadline, and they realized that they could no longer use this data set that they based a lot of their results finding action based off of. And he was kind of able to articulate how he pivoted from there, and how he was able to collaborate with his team from there in order to make the necessary changes. And I think that was just an example of what happens in the workplace sometimes, right? Like you do something wrong, you need to pivot, you mess up. And I think being able to like kind of leave your ego at the door, if you will. I think that goes really far in a professional setting as well. Um, so yeah, that's something that stuck out, just his ability to kind of articulate his ability to adapt.
Yeah, the ability to adapt, that's one. I think a question I've asked is, I know a lot of there's the age-old in college, someone doesn't carry their weight. How do you handle that situation? I think that has popped up, but like it truly is hearing the process of you recognize a problem, you address it, and walk through your process of addressing it. How did you handle it? And that kind of shows the mindset or the process, getting to look behind the curtain. And it might not have worked, but if something doesn't work, still seeing how you got to there is valuable and can learn a lot from that. The other piece, and I had it on the tip of my tongue, and I forgot that I want to talk about. Was when something that you expected to do well failed. And that's good. Like that's a good thing. And learning from that are two of, I think, some of the best things to take away. And hearing in an interview really resonate when you can recognize and take that feedback and apply it to the next time.
I think like a common theme in that is also ownership, right? Understanding like, hey, this worked or hey, this didn't. And you know what? In order for us to get towards a working solution, I did X, Y, and Z. But that's what I would add on top of that as well.
Yeah, I love all those examples because I'm hearing some from classes, some from group projects, but also some that are passion projects that you've done outside of classes. And so all of those things are relevant. So those were great. We have a question in the chat. I think we're wanting to hear from multiple of our recruiters. So I'm going to start with you, Madison. What's something that separates average candidates from standout candidates in your hiring process?
I think it keeps going back to the same points, and I know it sounds super cliche, but it's enthusiasm, not only for the company, but the role itself. If you get to the point where you are meeting with a recruiter, right, do some research on the company, right? Maybe find some blog posts or YouTube videos that shows that you've done your due diligence to research them a little bit further. But on top of that, I think it's just clear communication as well. Your enthusiasm for getting there, right? And having the opportunity to speak on behalf of your experiences. And another thing is, I always like to point this out. The interview process is an interview of you as much as it is for you as well, right? So make sure to come prepared with questions at the very end, whether that's about the growth opportunities, the culture there as well. But that's what I would say makes an average candidate stand out to me.
Yeah, and if I can just touch on the research aspect. The first thing I ask in any interview is basically tell me what you know about this role. And I frame it as, so I can help fill in the gaps. But it's really me seeing if you've done any research at all. And if the answer is, a a bunch of nonsense, that gets us off to a pretty bad start, right? It doesn't take super long to look at a job posting, put it into Copilot, and it'll give you 5 bullet points to touch on.
Yeah, echoing what Matt said, I think I ask a very similar question. I always ask what piqued your interest about Protiviti. And it's just crazy the difference between answers because I love that it's a consulting firm. And then I get some students who say, I found this video on YouTube and I mean, sometimes they'll even drop like specific names of people at the firm. And I'm not saying you have to do all that, but they're like, I love the culture. And I saw that this person does this at the firm. And I think it just goes back to people who are inquisitive and have enthusiasm and passion. And I think at the end of the day, that's because like we want to fill these roles with people who are excited and have the capacity to grow in it and be there for a long time. And that's typically going to be people who are like passionate about what the role entails and what the firm's all about.
Yeah, I will say for our students that why Appian, why Deltek, why Protiviti, very common question. And it is a place where you can make it or break it, so make sure you're prepared for that question. You will likely get asked that in an interview. All right, we have a lot of good questions coming in. Let's see, Evan, can you share, is there anything undergrads do in interviews or on their applications that hurt their chances without even realizing it?
This is a tough one. Because I only do undergrads. We only focus really on the undergrad program. I don't know, Eric, if you had something.
I got something. Don't BS me.
What
We've
do you
all
mean by
done
that, though?
hundreds of interviews. As soon as you start BSing me on something and we start digging a little bit further, we're going to realize you're lying to us. And it's automatic turn off. We're like, nope, done. Don't BS. Don't try to make something up. Be
Eric,
honest with us.
give us an example of what that's looked like.
I can't think of one because I
What?
always just throw them out in my head. I'm like, I'm done. I
Are
mean,
you
I don't
think, are you saying like embellishment of a skill or something? Like
exactly. And
overestimation of it?
right. And then we ask you, oh, well, so, yeah, I know. I use ChatGPT all the time. I use Claude all the time. Oh, really? How have you ever set up a project in it? Have you done? No. Have you ever done this? No. I'm like, so you really don't know how to use it. You just kind of made that up. That doesn't. We're going to know whether or not you're going to make something up because we're going to ask questions because we're curious.
I think to supplement that as well, because I 1000% agree, specifically around like some of your technical skills, you can explicitly state right in parentheses, expert, proficient, beginner, and that provides a little bit more context as to what that level is. Again, I don't suggest lying is a thing, but if you wanted to include that, just write your proficiency on the side as well.
There is also one that there's someone's put on the resume they're in some sort of club, and then when we asked about it, they're like, "Yeah, I'm not really in that." I'm like, "Well, don't put that on there. That looked very interesting to us, and we're going to ask you about it." So if you put it on your resume, it's the truth to us. So if you put something on there that you're just trying to make it look good, it doesn't. It makes it look bad because we were going to ask you about it.
And I think that's a different skill than reframing your resume based on a position, though, right? Just to like, they're not the same thing, but just the embellishment of some of those skills.
I also think another point, I guess sort of no, a different point that I'll make here. Um, I find that individuals sometimes like to use we terminology. I think it's really important during interview processes to focus on the individual contributions you made to the project and sort of how you led to a certain outcome. So just bear that in mind going through the interview process as well.
Yeah, that's great. We want team players, but in an interview, like talk about you. This is your one chance to brag about yourself. Okay, Maggie, I'll go to you for this one first. How much does GPA really matter to Protiviti versus demonstrating your technical and soft skills?
That's a great question. And I think it's tough because at Protiviti, at least we kind of recruit into different specialties and each one kind of has different expectations. I think kind of what I was talking about at the beginning of the call, I think areas of focus that pull more from like subject material in class. I think that maybe there would be a higher GPA expectations there. Um, but honestly, I'm not looking at the GPA too much. I think in the ones where the GPA matters, you don't need a 4.0, so I wouldn't get discouraged. I think like above a 3.2 is typically totally okay. I think it's also very dependent on the student, right? Like maybe you work a full-time job, maybe you're an athlete. So I don't think it's kind of a one size fits all situation. Um, I think especially like kind of back to the AI component of it, I think that's maybe one of the reasons that we're looking at skills more, because at the end of the day, maybe things that you're learning in classes, you can get that information from AI. So I think kind of with skills-based recruiting, and as we lean more into that as a firm, I do think we're kind of looking at more skills than GPA.
Yeah, at Delta, at least when we're recruiting for our team, I don't think we necessarily have a GPA number in mind. I will say if I don't know the number, if it's not the best GPA in the world, don't put it on your resume because I don't know if you just, didn't put it on your resume or if it's not good, right? But if you do put a number and it's, not the best, then, it's there and it's kind of hard to avoid. The opposite of that, if you have a great GPA, definitely put it on your resume.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'll echo that. I mean, a lot of times we talk to candidates, and with the three of us will, Matt, Evan, and I will talk about them quite a bit. And then we don't even discuss GPA. And then suddenly we're like, ooh, did you see that person's GPA? So it's like an afterthought for us. At Deltek, we do have a minimum requirement. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but we don't go to the GPA right away and say, what's their GPA? That really becomes an afterthought of like, wow, yeah, look at that. They're also smart. So we really look at the skills first.
Yeah, I'll add that in. Even though there is a requirement, a minimum, I don't know if we don't adhere strictly to it if there is. But if there was two candidates and they didn't have their GPA on it, right, and one has a 4.0, one has a 2.9, and the 2.9 has the better skills, soft and technical skills, I think there'd be a real discussion on who we would take for that role.
Interesting. Okay, good to know. Eric, we have a question for you specifically. I think this is a great question. How do you assess whether a candidate is a strong fit for the role and the culture of the firm?
That's a great question. I mean, especially for Deltek, because we always say at Deltek that one of our main reasons to come here is our culture. And so having somebody ask me that question up front and having me discuss it is a big shows that you're really thinking about it. It's a big fit. And we have that discussion about our culture, what it's like to work here, and how we want to grow individuals, and if that resonates with them or not. So that's, I mean, having that question in your pocket right away is to ask somebody about the culture there and why you stay at that company is huge. And was that did I answer all of the question there, or did I just sidetrack?
Yes, yeah, that was very helpful. So
Okay.
ask about the culture and then you can just kind of discuss in your
Yes.
conversation. That's great.
Yep.
All right, we are coming up on time. So the last thing I want to ask when thinking about applying, a lot of our students express concern over the AI system that may be reading their resume. So I would love to know to what degree is that a part of your process? What does that look like for students putting in keywords for skills on their resume?
We don't use it.
Okay.
Matt,
Yeah,
Evan,
and
and I
to,
sit there and read
oh,
every single resume.
Yep.
Okay. You heard it here.
I was going to echo that as well. We don't have an ATS system that just dismisses resumes. There are going to be human eyes on every single one. And specifically for our application process as well, there's actually a specific section where there's a question where it lists like why Appian and why this role. I find that sometimes individuals surpass that and don't believe that individuals are reading that answer thoroughly, but I promise you we are. And I think that's just another way for you to stand out. I do feel as though students get pulled so many different directions of you should bold this, you should underline this, you should highlight this, right? And I understand that's confusing. I think it's more important for you to make sure that your resume is very clear to read, right? Don't make it into a block structure. Keep it very legible throughout the process. And then for our, I guess, application process, make sure to focus on that one question as well.
Yes, echoing everyone's points, Protiviti, it's actualized looking at every resume. And I know for students, it may be challenging because you submit your resume and you don't know if a machine's reading it or a human. And I remember, that's tough. But yeah, Protiviti, human eyes.
Awesome. All right. Well, we are right up on time. So thank you so, so much for your time today. For our students, thank you for some great questions. These folks on the call would be great folks to follow on LinkedIn and see what's going on in their world. But again, thanks so much to all of our panelists for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.